Boring. Yawning. Sloppy. Lazy.
Welcome, Womit, and well done. You've made your way here. This is Bespoke Musings, a channel where I muse on topics expertly crafted, specially curated, and tailor-made just for you. Hot take: I don't care for the Scions. I find them all painfully banal. For the people who are supposed to be the Warrior of Light's entourage, party members, and companions, I have no love, care, or affection for any of them. And it's been this way for a while now for some of them, and pretty much always for others. In my opinion, Shadowbringers was the last time the Scions not only felt integral to the story, but also the last time any of them got any real character development. Endwalker had a bit of character development for some of them here and there, as did Dawntrail, but it just wasn't enough to get me to alter any opinion I may have had of them ever since Shadowbringers. After a good 5 years going on 6 without a big shakeup to their characters, I think it's safe to say the Scions have overstayed their welcome. At this point, we either get scraps or rehashes for character development, and it feels like CBU3's well has run dry regarding these characters. It's time for us to get a new core cast. Let's get old acquaintances we've met on our journeys, never before seen characters with unique jobs, characters with stronger ties to the places we visit, characters with lots of developing to do, and absolutely the most important of all, characters with a strong personality. Yes, and I'm gonna be so for real with you guys. I couldn't care less that the Scions are done with their development, or that they're no longer integral to the story. I don't. The real reason I'm over them is that they're all so painfully boring. They're so serious, even-keeled and pleasant. They don't inject any bit of fun into the cutscenes, or have good friction with each other. Alisaie and Grahatia, sometimes, are really the only Scions that have any vip, vim, vigor, and verve. But even then, Alisaie can be a bit too one-note, and Graha, well, I'll get there. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate 14 for having relatively mature character writing compared to its peers. I'm not asking for over-the-top, shonen-esque companions like in the Tales or Trail series. And yes, shonen is a demographic, not a genre. Y'all know what I mean. Anyways, I'm not asking for that. I just want more lively characters, you know? And yeah, I know, us getting a completely brand new cast probably isn't gonna happen. Between the attachment many people have to the Scions, the need for a variety of roles for the trust system, and the skills they bring to the table, it'd be hard to get rid of them completely. But we can get away with eliminating one or two of them to bring in new, hopefully better, additions, right? So the question I pose to you guys is simply, which Scions do you want put out to pasture? Before we can adequately answer this, we need to take a look at each of the Scions' current state in the story, their roles, and their skill sets. Alphinaud is probably the most squared off, rounded out character among the Scions, and he better be. He's been with us since the realm reborn, and has gone through major growth and shifts in his character. From being a bratty, arrogant kid way in over his head, to regaining his footing and confidence in Heavensward, to standing up against his father, and ultimately receiving his blessing in Endwalker. He serves as one of the party's 2 main healers, but can also be a DPS should the need arise. Out of battle, Alphinaud calmly acts as a Science diplomat and handles most of their political needs, a position most Scions don't regularly take up. Grahatia, Krile, and Y'shtola, if push came to shove, could probably handle it, but usually if it's anything involving politics, Alphinaud's your guy. Overall, I'd say Alphinaud's great to keep around. He's young, so there's lots of potential for growth and new stories, and his role as one of the party's 2 main healers and diplomat gives him a lot of weight in the battle and utility department. While Alisaie entered the party much later than the other Scions, I'd say she's still one of the better utilized characters of the cast as is, but also has a lot of room to improve. Off the bat, we get to see her empathetic and protective side in how she handled Gaboo, and it becomes the defining trait of hers throughout the expansions. She's a caster DPS, but can also be a healer on rare occasions. In addition, she's physically fit and lively, which helps her as a Scion's scrapper, I guess? Look, Alisaie's goal is to help the Warrior of Lights defeat monsters, rescue people, and occasionally take a beating so the Warrior of Light can help her. She also has a Kojin blessing and can breathe underwater if needed. Alisaie gets a passing grade, and we can keep her for future expansions. That said, CBU3 needs to dead the whole twin shtick. Notice how in both twins descriptions, I never brought up the other till now. They're individuals, and I like to see them less attached at the hips and go their own way more often. As a twin myself, fraternal thank goodness, it gets pretty irksome to always be linked to your sibling. The smart twin, the dumb twin, the nice twin, the mean twin, the science twin, the sports twin. Twins and other multiples know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, Thancred is one of the 2 Scions we still have that most people have been acquainted with since the beginning of A Realm Reborn. He's been with us since Ulda's beginning quests, and stuck around through being overtaken by La Habrea, the Bloody Banquet, losing Minfilia, and finally peaked with his and Reen's storyline in Shadowbringers. Quiet as it's kept, Thancred's battle with Ranjit and its aftermath was the perfect capping point for him. He really hasn't had any significant development since then, but he's kept around since he's one of the only 2 tanks we have for trusts. He's also the only Scion who has any espionage skills, making his out-of-combat utility one of the most important among all of them, since it can be utilized in many situations. So, as a character, you're going to find it hard to change or affect Thancred much, as it's been shown so far, but for gameplay purposes and his espionage, yeah, he has a use. Next, Y'shtola, the other Scion we've known since A Realm Reborn. She's been on our side throughout 2.x in the La Noscea region, and thanks to her power, was able to get the Warrior of Light and the Scions out of the whole Bloody Banquet situation. We retrieved her from the livestream in Heavensward, and she's remained her ever-confident, sassy self throughout the rest of the expansions. We got some exposition with her in Matoya's Cave, and once again in Shadowbringers. But Y'shtola has always been a fairly static character since A Realm Reborn. She's an adept spellcaster, can do both DPS and healing, and uses her immense spellcraft and knowledge to aid the Scions with anything magical in nature. Honestly, I don't even have to say anything about Y'shtola. She's the face of 14, and will be in the game no matter what. Urianger, though, is an interesting case. Technically, he's been with us since A Realm Reborn, but he's always been firmly in the supporting cast territory. In fact, we don't even have him as a traveling companion till Shadowbringers, and even then we find him far removed from others. Like Y'shtola, Urianger's personality has remained consistent since A Realm Reborn, and his growth minimal. He's been set up as a traitor to the Scions in 2 different expansions, and they implemented it a 3rd time just for him to refuse, so that it can be shown as development? Weird, but okay. Then he meets up with Moonbreeder's parents in Sharlayan, but his attitude towards her was so indifferent. I get what they were going for, and there's more to the story if you go digging in external materials, but I don't know. Urianger's writing is dog shit. Like Alphinaud, he can be both a healer and DPS, and he shares the same magic knowledge utility as Y'shtola, and pretty much most Scions have. Urianger on shaky ground. After 3 relatively static, boring characters, we now have G'rahatia. We meet him in the Crystal Tower story in A Realm Reborn, where his strong personality and his sacrifice endeared him to us, but he really came into his own in Shadowbringers. After an impassioned proclamation of wanting to travel with us, we now have him on our side, and boy does he irk me. I'm sorry, but G'rahatia ingratiating himself with the Warrior of Light is pretty off-putting. Like, I was on board with him coming with us, but there's something about how he's written to be, and I don't use this word at all, but a cinnamon roll. Maybe ingratiate is too uncharitable a word, but the glazing is a bit much. Like Alisaie, he has personality, I'm just not a fan. He's voiced by Jonathan Bailey at the very least, so that's something he has going for him. He's our first and only all-rounder, so his usefulness as a trust is unmatched, though he's yet another magic know-it-all like the previous 2 characters. Regardless to say, he's safe. Estinien is a fan favorite and had a ton of relevance in the Heavensward arc, though he pops up here and there throughout the expansions. As the dev said, once Reen was removed from our party in Endwalker, we needed a melee DPS, and Estinien slotted into the role easily. While his growth peaked in Heavensward, Estinien still gets good character exposition in any story that involves dragons, which serves as his first out-of-battle utility, being a dragon whisperer. His other, a scrapper like Alisaie. The biggest difference between the 2 is that when you need to get shit done, or when you need a character on the same power level as the Warrior of Light, just in a different location, you call on Estinien. Overall, we could take or leave him. Finally, Krile, the newly added Scion to our trusts. She's been with us as a travel companion since Heavensward, and has been a decent enough supporting character. Other than being used as the subject for the creation of the artificial echo, Krile has been relatively low-key. She finally joins us in battle to discover the truth about her parentage, and the question I have is, why? Why did we need Krile as a trust? She added nothing to the story. She would have worked just fine as a travel companion like Erenville, and I refuse to believe it was just because of the Pictomancer job or her being left out from the rest of the Scions. There needs to be a better reason. As it is, she's yet another caster DPS who also provides know-it-all utility. She's a chop. So who are we putting out to pasture? Well, clearly, from what we just went over, Urianger and Krile. Duh. They aren't particularly interesting characters, their battle roles aren't rare, and damn near everyone is a know-it-all. Even Alphinaud and Alisaie can do a little razzle-dazzle here and there. Now, that's just looking at the cold hard facts. Close to facts at least. But for me, I'd get rid of Thancred in place of Urianger. Yeah, by getting rid of him, we lose out on a tank as well as our espionage expert. But when we approach this from a story angle, Thancred is a Scion that feels like he has the most complete arc. Until he's able to return to the First and reunite with Reen, there's not much you can do with him. And even once he makes it to the First, he's just going to be Reen's guardian. Have him train Alisaie or Urianger in spycraft, and just add another tank in future expansions. Keep in mind, I've only finished base Dawntrail. I have no idea what happened in its patches. CBU3 could have elevated Thancred to the most crucial character in the story, for all I know. I doubt it, but I also wouldn't know. If we are getting rid of Scions, the question is, who will replace them? Honestly, I have no idea. Like I said, I haven't played the post-Dawntrail patches, so I couldn't say, but from what I could glean from the scuttlebutt, Erenville and apparently Scion seems to be likely candidates. Once again, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. There's speculation that Erenville might join us as a Beastmaster in the next expansion, last I saw, and I don't think it'd be the greatest inclusion. Erenville's cool, brooding, skeptical nature isn't necessarily a breath of fresh air among the Scions after all. Estinien echoes those traits, as do Thancred, Y'shtola, and Urianger, all to certain extents. He'd just be another serious, boring character, and I hope for more. And I couldn't tell you a thing about Scion. I'm assuming this is human Scion that has been restored somehow, not AI Scion? Yeah, regardless, I can't imagine her being any different from the know-it-all trope we've established. While I get the enthusiasm for these characters, again because the Scions were mishandled in Dawntrail, arguably since Endwalker, I also don't know whether they're the saving grace for the cast. Now, before Dawntrail's launch, I thought CBU3 was going to put the Scions in rotation moving forward. What I expected was, we'd go to Tehran with a handful of the Scions that would get new character arcs there, say Alphinaud, Grahatia, Krile, and Estinien, and join up with new characters that were integral to the story, like Wuklamon, Erenville, and Kuana. In the patch cycle after the main story, we'd eventually meet up with the rest of the Scions, find out what they've been up to, and for some of them, plant seeds for their involvement in future expansions. Then in 8.0, we travel with a mix of the old Scions we didn't go to Tehran with, and some of the new characters who joined the Scions. So instead of our previous party, we'd go with Alisaie, Urianger, Y'shtola, Kuana, and Erenville, then meet up with the new 8.0 party members, and mix and match going onwards. Once we got to 14's final expansion, its equivalent to Rhapsodies of Vana'diel, we'd have one last hurrah, and get all our living party members back for the last set of dungeons and trials. We could even have a Death Unto Dawn situation, where we split up into several teams, and do parts of a dungeon in the roleplay state as some of the Scions. Also, what about a Mass Effect 3 Citadel type event, where you get some patches that bring all the Scions back in one location, so we can catch up with the older ones we haven't partied with in a while, and see them interact with the newer Scions. Using this example, let's say we go to Mericidia in 8.0. At the start of the expansion, we get a scene where our old Scions and the new additions to our roster, let's say Erenville and Scion, mingle with each other in the Baldesion Annex before they see us off. Since we're going to Mericidia, home to the First Brood, we'd obviously have Estinien in our party. We'd also travel with Krile, who would be interested in the voyages certain Mikote groups took from Mericidia to Eorzea during the Age of Endless Frosts, Grahatia, due to his ties to the Allagan, Erenville because he's new, and would be interested in the unique flora and fauna to be found there, I guess, and Scion, also because she's new, and interested in the link between the Ninth and the Lalafell who cross over from the Source. There, we'd meet up with new characters who would join our party, go on a wild adventure, finish the expansion, and for the final scene, return to the Baldessian Annex, and close out with us meeting up with everyone again and introducing new Scions to our ranks. In the subsequent patches, we get a story involving Alphinaud, Thancred, and a couple of new characters, because in the following expansion, 9.0, we travel with Alisaie, Urianger, and Y'shtola from the old Scions, so we use the patches to develop Alphinaud and Thancred, since they're neither in the main cast of 8.0 nor 9.0. By designing the companion structure like this, you allow for not only space for the new characters to grow, instead of sharing it with a bloated cast, but also allows CBU3 to curate older characters more fitting for the story and gameplay needs of the expansion. And while we're at it, CBU3 needs to give older Scions new character arcs every expansion and give the newer cast, whether they officially join up with the Warrior of Light or not, more robust and vibrant personalities, as well as foil traits with the older cast. The lack of both is what contributed to the issue we saw in Dawntrail, where the returning cast just had nothing to do, and had no friction with anyone, so Wooklamot had to hog the spotlight, since she was the only one with a character arc, and several foils throughout the game. Give us new, startling developments for the older Scions that turn their strengths on their head, and force them to grow in unexpected ways. Alphinaud could have to act as a science diplomat to a group of people who have vastly different values he struggles to comprehend, much less accept. Place Estinien in a situation where he has to design a crest for a dragon or something. This is a weak example, just stick with me. Instead of being put in a combat situation, let's see how he fares when it comes to creativity, which could turn into something deeper, like getting a glimpse into Estinien's inner psyche. What if we got a story based on the 8th shard with aspects of Final Fantasy VIII? We go there with Y'shtola and find a true blue sorceress whose power far outstrips that of hers. Do we get to see a Reverend Y'shtola towards the absolute power of Hein? An envious one? What if this sorceress treats Y'shtola as a child who doesn't understand the forces she plays with? Does Y'shtola submit to her and ask for training? Does she show her obstinate side and become more competitive? Now, what if we went to Hingashi proper and had to work with a loyal, street-smart, straight-talking general? In other words, the complete opposite of Urianger. Imagine that, for this expansion, Alphinaud and all our other know-it-alls are occupied, so Urianger has to serve as our diplomat. How would the gawky, cryptically speaking mage build rapport with the general and his troops? Would he talk as he normally does, and risk confusing the layman? Would the general feel like he's being looked down on? Would Urianger try to adjust this trait, but end up sounding more awkward and stilted? Despite his appearances, Urianger can be pretty glib, so what if we saw this side of him come up more to relate to the general and his troops? And what if the general was a more earnest type, and attempted to execute a certain naive plan that bordered on self-destructive, in turn, making Urianger devise a more crafty and duplicitous, but safer option that went against the general's moral compass? It could call into question Urianger's previous developments, and dig deep into his rational mind, battling the promises he made to his allies. I know, these examples dealt with Urianger's speaking style and traitorous behavior, but what else is there to work with? He's a poorly written and handled character, and he needs a real arc, like yesterday. Now, that's me being as subjective as possible, because subjectively, he's actually my favorite Scion, though it's pretty much because of his, let's say, aesthetics. So, to bring it all together, the Scions have gotten old. They're all so boring and banal, and we need a change to fix them. Whether the change comes from situations where their skill sets are tested to their limits, from situations where they have to develop new skills, from new characters with stronger personalities to play off of them, or from a new cast entirely, change needs to happen. And that's that on that, on why the Scions have overstayed their welcome. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.